Hey everyone, welcome to the Royce Reports. I'm your host Royce, and on this channel we talk mostly Xbox related news, but I do dabble in other gaming related topics and reviews. So if you think you might be interested in that, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And today we are talking about none other than the infamous Activision Blizzard acquisition by Microsoft, since that is what is in the news topic again. And so with that, there is a proposed 10-year deal by Microsoft to Sony to keep Call of Duty on their PlayStation platform for the next 10 years. And there's potential for the FTC to actually sue or try to cancel this deal. So with that, let's get into the news. All right, so I'm going to start this off with a 10-year deal. This happened a couple days ago, and I'm barely getting around to it right now. But Microsoft has now extended the deal to Sony to allow Call of Duty to be on their platform in parity, in console parity, for the next 10 years. That is correct, 10 years. Microsoft says it offered Sony a 10-year deal to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. PlayStation denies it has been overstating the importance of the series in talks with regulators. So before I start that, I kind of want to go and start at the middle of the article here and point out something. In September, Xbox boss Phil Spencer said Microsoft had committed to making Call of Duty available on PlayStation for several more years after Sony's current deal with Activision expires, which will reportedly follow the release of a new game from Black Ops developer Treyarch in 2024. However, PlayStation boss Jim Ryan, who is reportedly seeking access to future Call of Duty games on terms and in perpetuity, responded publicly by calling Microsoft's proposal for keeping the series on PlayStation consoles inadequate on many levels. So they came out, Microsoft said, hey, we've already offered them a deal. This is what our deal was, and we are waiting for their response. And Sony came out and said, hey, that is inadequate. Pretty much saying, we want Call of Duty for longer. Microsoft ended up telling them that we'll give you 3 extra years on top of the deal you already have in place with Activision Blizzard for Call of Duty. And Jim Ryan came out and said, hey, that was inadequate on many levels, that they pretty much just wanted it for longer. And now they are getting it for longer, if if this is to be true at all. So going back to the article here, Microsoft has reportedly offered Sony a deal that would see the Call of Duty franchise remain on PlayStation for a decade. The Xbox maker told the New York Times that it had offered the 10-year deal to Sony on November 11th. Sony declined to comment on the claim. Now that's the key point right there. So Sony declined to comment. That is what I think is the key takeaway from that article. It's just that one sentence. And why I think that is so important is because throughout this whole entire process, through talking to UK CMA, through talking to Brazil, to meeting with FTC, to being so outspoken about everything that Microsoft is doing with this Call of Duty franchise, Sony has been there, has been complaining, has been saying things, has been always saying, hey, I got something to say here, I got something to say. But the moment there's rumors of them saying, hey, you know what, we offered them a 10-year deal and they have declined it. And when they go and ask Sony about that, they refuse to talk about it. What does that tell you? That tells you that that is obviously true, and they just don't want to look bad in front of the CMA, in front of the FTC, in front of the EU. They just want to just say, you know what, we're done talking. We're not going to say anymore. So that is so, oh my, that's what I'm talking about. It's so grimy. That is such a grimy move. Sony is trying to do everything they can to ensure that either this deal doesn't go through, that Call of Duty isn't exclusive to Microsoft, and that Microsoft is not allowed to put this in Game Pass. Like, they are really, really trying to ensure that even if Microsoft do acquire Call of Duty, that they can't use it in any sort of way to kind of get a leg up on anybody else. And that's crazy to me. And I bring this up a lot. I've talked about it a lot, but Call of Duty is not the essential game that these guys are making it out to be. They're talking about how, oh, if PlayStation doesn't have Call of Duty, they're going to sink. They are going to just crumble. And that is largely false. That is a false statement by far, because Call of Duty is not the end all be all when it comes down to playing video games. And they talk about it in the CMA's response, Microsoft CMA's response, about how even if you took all of the Call of Duty players on PlayStation and shifted them over to Xbox, it still wouldn't be enough for PlayStation to have any issues. They would still be the market leader in that sense. Even if they do take Call of Duty and make it exclusive, I don't think it would hurt them in any way, shape, or form. And we keep bringing up things like Spider-Man. Spider-Man is arguably one of the most popular superheroes of all time, if not the most popular superheroes. He's up there with Batman, with Superman. That's how iconic Spider-Man is. And with that, Sony has exclusivity rights for Spider-Man. They have their own Spider-Man game that is on their console. And people argue that that is different, but it is not. Spider-Man is far more recognizable than Call of Duty. And they have that locked down on their console. When does Xbox get Spider-Man on their platform?
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
And that's okay. That is fine. And I agree that it is fine. Now, another thing I want to talk about is how people keep saying, oh, well, if they take Call of Duty, they're going to make it exclusive. They're just talking right now. They're just saying, hey, we're trying to keep Call of Duty on there. We don't want to remove Call of Duty. We want it to be on there as long as there is a PlayStation. This isn't about removing PlayStation 7's legs. This is about making sure that more people can play these games, which is true. You cannot have Call of Duty be as successful as it is without multiplayer, without having it on as many screens as possible. And if you go and you take that away from PlayStation, you're only hurting your bottom dollar, especially with how the economy is right now, with how hard it is to get a Xbox Series X. Even if you did buy it and then make it exclusive immediately, you wouldn't get a large influx of people because of how hard it is to get a console right now. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot, and you're not making back any of that $70 billion that you just spent. They want to make this multi-platform for as long as they can. That is true. That's all they want to do. And people are just trying to say, no, well, what if? And there is no what if. The proof is right there. That doesn't make any business sense to do that. Not only that, but they also have Minecraft. Minecraft is a great example of this. Minecraft is on every platform. It is on PlayStation. It is on Xbox. It is on Switch. It is on phones. It is on PC. You could play it on a browser. There's so much you could do with Minecraft, and Minecraft still remains around to this day on multiple platforms. And not only is Minecraft around, but they've also done other things with Minecraft. They've done the Minecraft Telltale series. That was multi-platform. They've done Minecraft Dungeons. That was multi-platform. They are doing Minecraft Legends. That is multi-platform. They're continuing to support the Minecraft IP across different platforms. And you would argue like, okay, well, Call of Duty's bigger than Minecraft. No, it's not. Call of Duty is not bigger than Minecraft. In fact, Minecraft is the best-selling game of all time. Take that into account. The best-selling game of all time has sold over 238 billion copies, and it has no signs of slowing down. People love Minecraft. Kids love Minecraft. Adults who don't play video games know what Minecraft is because their kid won't stop talking about it. Minecraft is huge. But that's okay for Microsoft to own that. And that's fine though. They could own the biggest franchise of all time, the best-selling game of all time, and that's fine. No one's batting an eye about that. No one's looking at Minecraft because that is a direct comparison to Call of Duty. Call of Duty is not as big as Minecraft. Minecraft is proof that Call of Duty would also remain multi-platform. It's about bringing those games to other services because Call of Duty isn't on Switch. Call of Duty isn't on Steam. Like, That's what Microsoft wants to do. They want to bring it to those platforms. And that's another thing, is that even if you take away Call of Duty, you still have a successful franchise. Sony is still a very successful product without Call of Duty. Look at Steam. Steam is hugely successful and doesn't even have Call of Duty. Look at Switch. Switch is the best-selling console this generation without any Call of Duty on it. And that's another thing, right? Speaking of Switch, we have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. These games are selling crazy. They're selling so fast. In fact, the highest grossing media of all time is Pokemon. Should Pokemon not be allowed to be maintained solely on Switch because of how popular it is? It is the highest grossing IP of all time. Nothing else tops it. So shouldn't you go and kind of be like, hey, we're going to have to review that and be like, no, that's not okay. You're going to have to put that on Xbox. You're going to have to put that on Sony, because by you not having it on those other platforms, you're hurting those platforms. No, it's theirs. They can do whatever they want with it. And because of it being so successful, they don't need any of that. They don't need anything, right? But Mario is also a huge franchise that Nintendo owns, and it is huge as well. They own these huge IP, and no one is stopping them from putting that on just Switch or just Nintendo products because they own it. It's like there's so many other things that you could do to be successful, and Switch is proof. Steam is proof. You could just look at the numbers that Ragnarok did this week. Congratulations to Sony Santa Monica for making God of War Ragnarok the fastest selling first party launch game in PlayStation history. 5.1 million sales. 5.1 million sales in its debut week. That is amazing. That is crazy. A lot of game companies would kill for something like that, and Sony is just selling them, just breaking history, breaking records here. But they can't survive without Call of Duty. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, they're really struggling over there. Those are all pretty much my points that I want to talk about. I wanted to discuss that because I feel like a lot of people see Call of Duty and they all the time, every time I look online, they're always talking about how, oh, Phil Spencer's a liar, and he's talking through his teeth, and he's hiding things behind his back. And yeah, the whole thing with Bethesda, I get it. A lot of people got burned by that, and I understand. But at the same time, you got to also understand the difference between Bethesda and the difference between Activision Blizzard. Bethesda, other than Elder Scrolls Online and Fallout 76, is a single-player studio, and that is it. That's all they focus on, and they are continuing to make that the most important fact about them, is that they are always going after single-player games. That's what they do, except for those two outliers. And Fallout 76 has had some rough patches, and Elder Scrolls Online still has a decent following, but they're nothing like what Call of Duty is. You need Call of Duty on multiple platforms. End of discussion. There you go. You just need it. It is Activision games with Overwatch, with Diablo, with Warcraft and Starcraft and Call of Duty. These games survive on the amount of people that are playing it. And if you remove that from the services that they are on, you are removing the success of that product. You are literally shooting it in the leg and telling it to run a marathon. That is not how you do it. So if you think for a second that is a possibility, you obviously have no clue how a business should be run. This is a $1.8 trillion company. Microsoft is the richest company in the world. In order to get that way, you kind of have to know something about business, I would think. All right, so we're going to move on to the discussions of the FTC potentially canceling this deal. Fed's likely to challenge Microsoft's $69 billion Activision takeover. A lawsuit would be the FTC's biggest merger challenge to date under Chair Lina Khan. The Federal Trade Commission is likely to file an antitrust lawsuit to block Microsoft's $69 billion takeover of video game giant Activision Blizzard, maker of the hit games Call of Duty and Candy Crush, according to 3 people with knowledge of the matter. A lawsuit challenging the deal is not guaranteed, and the FTC's 4 commissioners have yet to vote out a complaint or meet with lawyers for the companies, 2 of the people said. However, the FTC staff reviewing the deal are skeptical of the company's arguments, those people said. So I kind of want to break this down right here, this paragraph. So they say that a lawsuit challenging the deal is not guaranteed, and the FTC's 4 commissioners have yet to vote out a complaint or meet with lawyers for the companies, 2 of the people said. So there is nothing here. like they talked to someone that is close with this deal, and they pretty much said, hey, we haven't talked to the lawyers yet. And if you're not talking to the lawyers about anything before you're going to go and just pretty much give a lawsuit without having any sort of, and to do this without making any sort of concession is not, just not how it works. So they haven't even talked to the lawyers of these companies yet, and they're over there saying, hey, you know what, this is kind of skeptical. And that's the other thing. They bring up the skeptical part of this. The FTC staff reviewing the deal are skeptical of the company's arguments, those people said. Have fun taking that to court. Hey, why are we here at court today? Oh, well, I was kind of skeptical of the deal. The fuck? Skeptical? That's why? What? Oh, okay. All right. You know what? Court is adjourned. We are going home. Like, that is the lamest excuse I've ever heard. You need facts. You need statements. You need proof. You don't need skepticism to be the argument. Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical of Call of Duty maybe going exclusive. Maybe. Even though they've stated multiple times when they try to sign a 10-year deal. I'm kind of skeptical. The investigation remains ongoing, but much of the heavy lifting is completed, including depositions of Microsoft Chief Executive Satya Nadella and Activision head Bobby Kotick. The people with knowledge of the investigation said, if the agency does move ahead with the case, it could come as soon as next month, said the people, all of whom were guaranteed anonymity to discuss a confidential matter. Central to the FTC's concern is whether acquiring Activision would give Microsoft an unfair boost in the video game market. Microsoft's Xbox is number 3 to the industry-leading Sony Interactive Entertainment and its PlayStation console Sony, however, has emerged as the deal's primary opponent, telling the FTC and regulators in other countries that if Microsoft made hit games like Call of Duty exclusive to its platform, Sony would be significantly disadvantaged, which we talked about earlier. That is not true. They have so many great IP, and also the 10-year deal, if they decided to agree to it, would give them enough time to actually go and develop something that can compete with Call of Duty. You have Killzone, you have Resistance, you have SOCOM. They're also working with Deviation Games on a unannounced brand new Sony IP that the developers of Deviation come from Call of Duty. So you could kind of expect it to be of FPS. So they are already working on something that could potentially be the answer to Call of Duty. And they own Bungie. Which is with Destiny, which people consider the best looter shooter of all time. So I don't think they're really struggling here. They have enough time to actually do something about the Call of Duty dilemma of it potentially going exclusive. Later on in the article, they talk about, to a lesser extent, Google is also an opponent of the deal. According to 2 of the people with knowledge of the matter, the company has argued that Microsoft has purposely degraded the quality of its Game Pass subscription service when used with Google Chrome's operating system, and owning Activision would further its incentive to do so, ultimately steering hardware sales towards Microsoft and away from Google, the people said. Google is a minor player in the gaming industry and is winding down its own gaming service, Stadia. However, it is under antitrust scrutiny around the world, including for conduct in the gaming market, and is unlikely to be a sympathetic opponent. Fortnite maker Epic Games is currently suing Google, arguing that it is illegally blocking Fortnite from its mobile app store Google Play. As part of that case, Epic recently accused Google of paying Activision $360 million to not offer a competing app store on Android phone. So that is something right there. Google's out here saying like, yeah, we also don't agree about this, but it's like, okay, you guys are saying that, but you didn't support Google Stadia whatsoever. Like they talk about how they couldn't survive in this world, in this market of the consoles because of how ingrained people are with Xbox and Sony and Nintendo, but they didn't support Stadia at all. They didn't make Stadia a viable service for really anybody. You had to pay for it, and on top of your monthly fee, you're also required to buy the games individually. So you're running it through the cloud, and depending on your location, your play of the game could be really, really affected by that and could actually degrade your experience because of how bad and laggy it could have been. So that's their own fault. That's not anyone else's fault except their own. And them going and acquiring these studios and then having them not make anything for your game console, and then just shutting everything down, that is your fault. That is no one else's fault. It's not like you don't have money for it. Google is huge. They have the money for it, and they decided to just pretty much can it. And now they're blaming it on Microsoft because it's a good scapegoat. And this whole argument about degrading their service, about how Microsoft degrades Xbox Game Pass on Google, doesn't really make any sense. And it's just like they said, to a lesser extent, Google is an opponent. To a lesser extent, saying, yeah, they don't really matter. And none of the shit that they're going to say to the FTC is actually going to change anything. Just kind of fluff. The FTC's concerns, however, extend beyond Call of Duty, and investigators are trying to determine how Microsoft could leverage future unannounced titles to boost its gaming business, according to two people with knowledge of the review. Any suggestion that the transaction could lead to anti-comp effects is completely absurd. This merger will benefit gamers and the US gaming industry, especially as we face increasingly stiff competition from abroad, said Activision spokesperson Joe Christinat. We are committed to continuing to work cooperatively with regulators around the globe to allow the transaction to proceed, but will not hesitate to fight to defend the transaction if required. So that's kind of interesting. They talked about them having to look at unannounced titles to see how that would affect the anti-competitive nature of the Activision Blizzard acquisition, and that is actually pretty interesting. That's them just doing their job, which is expected. But maybe we could potentially learn some more stuff about that if they ever do go to court, which at this moment is not confirmed. I feel like a lot of people are running around with this story saying, yeah, they're going to get sued, that the FTC is going to cancel this deal, but the FTC is not the final say on this deal. If the FTC really wanted to cancel this deal, they would have to take it higher than the FTC, because the FTC is just a commission and they have their own regulatory body, but they are not the law, essentially. Microsoft spokesperson David Cuddy said the company is prepared to address the concerns of regulators, including the FTC and Sony, to ensure the deal closes with confidence. We'll still trail Sony and Tencent in the market after the deal closes, and together Activision and Xbox will benefit gamers and developers and make the industry more competitive. Yeah, that's also a very interesting point, is because of the fact that this deal is going to not be anywhere near a monopoly. Like, they are not going to be even number one in gaming. They're still behind Tencent. They're still behind Sony. That is very interesting, because a lot of people kind of don't want Tencent to be the number one gaming company. They control a lot in the gaming market, and you would think that America would want to pass this because it would give America more of a lead in that market and kind of, have more say in the gaming sphere. But maybe not. That's just making it political at that point. But all this is only political, really. Like, it's just a political thing anyways. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see them say no to this while Tencent is over there buying more and more companies and pretty much putting their stake into a lot of other companies as well. It'd be pretty interesting to see what the outcome of that is. The FTC technically does not have to take any action at this point. Regulators in Europe and the UK have also recently opened in-depth probes, meaning the companies couldn't close the deal until the spring at the earliest. That means if the FTC does sue, it would likely bring a case in its own in-house administrative court. The agency typically challenges deals first in federal court to block them with a temporary injunction pending a trial in its in-house court. Without the imminent risk of the deal closing, however, it would be difficult to get a temporary injunction. The companies have until July next year to close the deal without renegotiating the agreement. An administrative lawsuit filed later this year or in January would be unlikely to be resolved by July and could potentially force the companies to abandon the deal. So that is also the key takeaway, is if they do decide to sue, you could get caught up in that litigation that could end up pretty much foregoing the whole deal in itself. I don't know if that will happen. I really don't think anything. I think this deal is still going to go through. You could pretty much see me saying it in all my videos that it will go through. I think that there is nothing wrong with this deal. I do think this deal will close at some point in the spring, and we could be done with this. It'd be surprising if I was wrong, but also if I was wrong about it and they didn't close, I think that the only thing I'd be upset about is the fact that it's a lot of time wasted, and that kind of sucks. It's just like wasting time when during that time Sony has been able to acquire multiple studios, and you've also lost the fact that Microsoft missed out on Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal. So it obviously seemed like they were interested in those studios because of how close they were working together on their projects, and they missed that opportunity because they were caught up in this deal. So with that, if they lost the deal and it didn't go through, I am curious to know whether or not it would actually affect what they do with that money. That's $69 billion that was dedicated to solely buying that company. So would they use that money to go and acquire other studios? Would they try to acquire a Japanese studio, so they keep talking about that, like something like Square Enix or Capcom or Sega or something? Or would they invest that into themselves? Would they create a new studio? Like, there's so many questions because that is such a large amount of money. What would you do with that? Would you just put it back into the bank and say, all right, well, better luck next time? I don't know. But I think it's going to close. I don't really care if it does or not, honestly. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect the way I play. Even if the shoe's on the other foot, if Sony is trying to acquire Activision stuff, it would also not really affect me too much. But that's just speaking out of a very narrow lens. Obviously, Call of Duty and all these other franchises are huge, and it does affect a lot of people. But what do you guys think? Do you think this deal will be closing? Do you think that the FTC is actually going to sue and try to cancel this deal? Or do you think that there's going to be concessions? And what are the concessions do you think? Do you think that they're going to have console parity and subscription parity? So if they launch Call of Duty in the Game Pass, they also have to launch it in PlayStation Plus. Let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys for stopping by. And if you liked what you saw and you'd like to see more, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll be seeing you guys on the next one. And remember, take it easy.